Retirement planning robs you and millions of others for the chance for real financial freedom. It has become too easy to hand your money over to so-called experts who convince us to separate ourselves from our hard-earned money while they take fees and commissions along the way, all while locking your money away for 30 plus years without being able to have any control over it. Don't end up poor and miserable and unable to retire like 95% of Americans at age 65. And to do that, you've got to avoid these 5 mistakes. Now, we've got to talk about what retirement is first and foremost. It's economic independence. What that means is having enough cash flow coming from your assets to cover your basic expenses. Financial freedom, on the other hand, is a place where you have a state of mind and a state of being where money's not the primary reason or excuse why you do or don't do something. A lot of people have financial freedom because money is kind of like on their mind all the time. They feel like they can't afford it. They feel like if they only had more, life would be better. They worry about it all the time. There's no freedom in that, no matter how much money you have. But economic independence is a first step towards that when you have enough cash flow coming in, and the U.S. Department of Labor says 95% of Americans are not able to be economically independent at age 65. How has this happened? What is the problem behind it? It's really because of these mistakes that are perpetuated by Wall Street, well-intentioned financial advisors, and there's some that get fired up when I start to illuminate this. So what are the 5 planning mistakes that will leave you robbed of financial freedom? Well, the first one is paying the Wall Street tax. Now, what do I mean by Wall Street tax? It's unnecessary Wall Street fees. There's things called 12b-1 fees inside of funds, which are actually marketing fees. There's expense ratios, and sure, some of that might be paying a fund manager, but when we look at long-term studies, fund managers tend to underperform against index funds that have much lower fees. I mean, when you're thinking about Wall Street, are you thinking about someone friendly, well-intentioned, have your best interests at heart, or are you thinking about someone that's making money on your money? These type of people that say it takes money to make money, or high risk equals high return, well, it doesn't take them high risk to get high return. They're getting return on your money. And it doesn't take their money to make money. They're making money off of your money. So when we look at all these unnecessary fees, whether even admin fees or legal fees or all these different kind of that's riddled without these retirement plans and that's inside of just the funds, that can add up to so much of your return. I mean, we've seen so many different studies, and I just could use a calculator and go, okay, what if you had 100 grand for 30 years? There's this miracle that we are touted called compound interest that's supposed to be amazing, and that if you get 10% on that, it's going to grow to 1.74 million. But if you have 0.8%, less than 1%, 0.8% of underperforming or unnecessary Wall Street fees, it only grows to like 1.4 million. We're talking about a $340,000 loss, and so most of the time we're being taught and trained and educated to think in terms of percentages because that seems small, 9.2 to 10%. Doesn't seem like a big deal. But I want you to really start looking at the bottom line, how it impacts you, what kind of drag comes with these types of fees that start to rob you of your wealth. All right, another kind of rookie mistake, or another way that the institutions and the planners get us to think differently than the ways the rules really work. And I'm here to tell you, if you follow these antiquated or these terrible rules, it kind of rigs the game against you. So the second mistake is accumulation. Accumulation is this notion that if you just hand your money over, you wait for a really long period of time, and if you would have just invested early, often, and always, and you ride the market up and down, and you don't worry about when it's down, you just kind of leave it, set it, and forget it. This type of thinking of accumulation has been very detrimental. Why? Because it has people believe that wealth is a function of how much money you can set aside, what kind of return you can get on that money, and how long you're willing to wait. Well, to get that return, most people, once again, are taught that they should take high risk. In order to, have more money in the future, they said, invest as much as you can, usually robbing them of lifestyle, going to a budgeting mindset of scrimping, saving, and sacrificing, and no one shrinks their way to wealth. So accumulation becomes problematic because it has us focus instead on something that we can't control in a future that's so far away, rather than looking at our cash flow. If you have cash flow from your investments, you've already had a way that you've won. When that cash flow comes in, it starts to become part of the plan to become economically independent and cover your basic expenses. If that cash flow ever suffers, it turns off, it's not working, you're now alerted that it's not working and you can do something about it. If you're waiting for 30 years, how do you know whether it's working or not? And when you get close to the end, what if you go, wait, I didn't get enough money set aside, or the return wasn't good enough? Are you just going to wait longer? Now you're going to add a lot more money at a time that it doesn't have have much to grow. Accumulation is so detrimental, and it's kind of the main lead villain when it comes to finance. This villain of hand your money over to these other so-called experts. Are these experts doing a good job if most people are not actually financially free or economically independent, or if there is no accountability or responsibility? This is what infuriates me, frustrates me, and why I want to make sure to educate you and make sure that you can see a different way, because if you start to focus on cash flow, you can start to gain that momentum. You can start to find out what it takes to get to economic independence, and I've got other amazing videos on exactly what it takes to get there. Now, the third big mistake. The third big mistake, it's kind of like, you know how tissue is describing something that you might blow your nose with, where Kleenex is the brand? Well, most people, they just collapse the two. They go tissue, Kleenex, same thing. One's a brand, one's actually a description of what we have. The same things happen in investing. Most people just consider investing stocks, like it's synonymous, right? Like it's all the same thing. It's not the same thing. You don't have to invest in stocks. You don't even have to invest in bonds. You may not even invest in real estate. You might not invest in businesses. You might not invest in oil and gas or tax liens or commercial paper or, there's so many different things. What you have to really figure out is you have to figure out what your investor DNA is. What are your core values? What are the things you're most competent in and the things you truly understand? And where do you have the most interest and where are you driven to kind of study and look at? Because it's part of your everyday life. What if you were to only invest in things that you knew rather than gambling and speculating in things that you don't understand and spreading yourself thin by buying way too many stocks in a mutual fund, not knowing which ones are going to go up or down, which ones are being held, which ones are going to go out of business, or how you're actually going to benefit from those. So knowing your investor DNA means you've got to sit in cash and sit on the sidelines, invest in yourself until you really know where to invest, because if you think someone else is going to get you there, we've seen the stats, we've seen the results they're in, it's not going to. Now the bad news here is that you have to be responsible and accountable for your finances. No one can care more about them than you do. And if someone else says they do, that's kind of how deception and coercion and loss comes about. So I really want you to know what makes sense to invest in based upon who you are. And if you're not sure where to invest in that lesson, in those learning, and what you can do to increase your education, pay off loans, build up plenty of liquidity. You don't have to go speculate. You can check out cashflowbanking.com as a place to store your money until you figure it out. All right, the next mistake, let's go number 4. Staying invested for the long haul. I mean, the long haul just sounds terrible. Like the long haul sounds like something so far away, I don't even know when it ends or when we get there. Sounds like a terrible CrossFit workout that only some weirdo would post on social media to be like, look how cool, I just tortured myself for hours at a time. That's what the long haul sounds like. Look, don't always stay invested. There's times where it makes sense to sit on the sidelines, to build plenty of cash up, to pay off loans, to invest back into yourself, to wait for the right opportunity to come and then pounce on it when you can make money on the buy because there's value there, because it's depressed, because it's distressed, and you can say, hey, here's someone else that has no cash flow and they neglected that. They were following this path that everyone else was, and then you can come in and you can kind of support them and save them. So look, I can give you more depth on this, and if you want to see it, I wrote an article in Forbes that goes into these 5 mistakes. So you can just see the link right here in the description. Go ahead and click on it, go there and check out this article. Now let's get to the 5th one. The 5th one is locking wealth up in the wrong places. There's some business owners out there that they always put everything back into their business, and their business becomes like an insatiable appetite black hole. No matter how much more money they put in, the more money that requires. And they never transfer that business wealth to personal wealth. So simply, it's all about paying yourself first. And when I say pay yourself first, I'm not talking retirement plans or locking your money away. I'm saying actually putting money into a savings account, into a wealth capture account is what I like to call it. It's just a checking or savings account that you set your money so it's not commingled. It's not in your normal spending. It's not inside of your business. And I've just seen far too many people that don't pay themselves out of their business. Make sure that you do, and you start to capture this along the way by paying yourself first. Then start looking at ways that you could safely improve that return. Cashflowbanking.com is an awesome way to do better than one of those measly little savings accounts that's taxable. It's barely earning anything, right? So that's a very easy thing to do to start to discover and really start to build an automatic system to capture that wealth and then deliberately invest. Automatically save, deliberately invest. Look for opportunities, only invest in what you know. Stop just accumulating. Don't just rely on everyone else. It's about responsibility and accountability along the way, because what we've seen is this entire notion of retirement has robbed and derailed millions of people from the path to financial freedom. Neglecting accountability, not thinking about what they have right now with their loans, not understanding how to invest, hoping that Wall Street's got their best interests in mind. They don't. So you've got to avoid these 5 retirement mistakes so you can truly achieve financial freedom and retire from what you hate doing and start doing more of what you enjoy and love, and start to invest in yourself, increase the amount of profits, increase the amount of production, increase the amount of value creation, because you are your greatest asset, not some stock, bond, or piece of real estate. So now you have the knowledge to transform your thoughts into profits and build the life you love. If you're looking for more on this topic, check out the video on how anyone can invest and become rich. I'll see you there. If what your retirement planner taught you about money was true, then everyone would be rich. There are 9 specific myths that people hold about money. It's time to break them. How about this one? High risk equals high return.